What's up, guys? Josh here. Music Mondays, episode 2. Last week's Music Monday, we did Yoshi Hirakawa's Spaces. There's a link below. Super cool side note. He actually reached out on Facebook to let me know that he really liked the video. And for him to mention it at all was super cool and definitely motivated me to keep going. But for this episode, I want to hop over to one of my other favorite albums, which I will be doing requests soon. I want to get a few albums out of the way, things that I really wanted to kind of discuss and talk about on my own, and then I'll start taking user recommendations. So leave your recommendations for albums down below. Also, super sorry if I sound sick. I am. So in today's Music Mondays, we're going to be talking about Inception. And it's actually a film score, and that movie is spectacular. Crazy. If you haven't seen it, I'll leave a link down below. I highly recommend it. Don't even rent it, just buy it. Trust me. Just trust me. Now, the score itself was actually composed by Hans Zimmer, who is a pretty prominent film composer, actually. Now, the film itself was directed by Christopher Nolan. And real quick fun fact, Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer are my all-time favorite composer-director duo. Those two just are magic. Now, real quick, I watched over last week's episode because I really wanted to see, what I could speed up, what it could make better, what it could make more efficient, or just be a better experience. And instead of going through every single song on the album like I was doing on the last Music Mondays, for this Music Monday, what I want to do is I just kind of want to go over the tracks that I found particularly notable, and I had a lot to say, not the tracks that I was kind of just like, eh. So this album as a whole is powerful and epic, and if those were two words to describe any type of score, any type of songs, they would be applicable to these. Hans manages to do a really good job of keeping a very consistent theme. Now, what this album is really good for is actually what I consider to be like a headphone or a speaker stress test. It's one of those things where you can play it on a phone, you can play it on your laptop, you can play it on your speakers, and it's gonna sound good just about everywhere. But it's not gonna sound grand, and it can sound grand. But if you have a system that can really play it well, either a set of headphones that can do large scale sounds really well, or a speaker system that has, a very powerful, very visceral kind of attack to the sound, this album sounds just another level, just beyond what most albums are capable of sounding like. Dream is Collapsing. This track is where things start to pick up, and it kind of shows the ballsy characteristics, the strong characteristics. Now, as the slow introduction of this song comes in, it actually starts with a electric guitar. And the funny thing was about this, until I was actually writing this down and making sure that I have everything that I wanted to say kind of structured and ready to go, I never really noticed that he uses electric guitar throughout this entire thing. And I'm not a musician, I never have been. So I'm sure musicians would pick that up instantly and they think about stuff like that, but just as a music consumer, not a music creator, most instruments are really obvious, and I try and think about them, but for whatever reason, as many times as I have listened to this entire track, I never really noticed that it uses, throughout the entire album actually, it uses the electric guitar a lot. So it enters with this electric guitar and kind of this smooth, kind of fluctuating beat. And that, as well as some strings and soft horns, kind of usher in this very powerful but slow crescendo. The entire song is one long crescendo. Throughout this whole song, his pacing is excellent. And when the end hits, if you listen to it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the next song is Old Souls. And there's kind of this soft intro, like most of the songs on this track are. In fact, a lot of these songs actually give me kind of Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon vibes, because if you play it on either a vinyl or if you play it on like a playback software that doesn't have any time in between the tracks and it just plays, one right after the other, like it's one continuous song. I think like the first 4 or 5, maybe even 6 songs on here sound like one continuous track, which is really cool. Now, they each have their own individual characteristics, but similar to Dark Side of the Moon, it kind of, you kind of get to follow along the story of the music with it. But at the beginning of Old Souls, I'm kind of feeling like some of the beginning, I'm not sure what kind of instrument or if it's purely electronic in this, but there's something about these kind of long, drawn out kind of notes that are very Blade Runner 2049-esque. So I'm wondering if this was partially some of that inspiration because he helped actually compose the Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack. I don't think he composed the whole thing. I think it was a team effort. But definitely some of the roots were, I'm sure, seated in old souls. And overall, for about 3/4 of the song, it maintains this very soft, very pleasant, very kind of romanticized tone to it. And then it kind of ends in a pretty violent uptick of beat and intensity. It's quite fun. Mombasa might be one of my favorite tracks. I think Time is my #1 favorite, which we'll talk about in a second, but I think Mombasa is a close second. And the reason why I like it is because it's got this different pace, and there's kind of this quick, repetitive beat, and in the movie it goes along with the chase scene. And with this particular track, I really appreciate not only the beat and the characteristics of the song, yes, but I appreciate the ability to add intensity in a song and kind of give it that chase feel. Like, even if you hadn't watched the movie, you'd still get a very chasey scene type of vibe with it, which I think is really neat. But I really appreciate the difference of the song, because all the other songs kind of blend together. Like, if you were to play one particular track out of the album, I probably wouldn't be able to name which one it is. I might be able to tell you whether or not it's the one I like or the ones I like, but I probably wouldn't be able to name it, save for a couple. But Mombasa, I know that instantly. Like, first 2 seconds of the song, I can name it every single time. Now, it's got this weird characteristic where there's certain parts of it, and I don't pick it up on all speakers, but certain speakers, the placement of the sounds is different. And it almost sounds like a mixture of a live recording in the background and kind of an electronic overlay of certain types of sounds, kind of more in the foreground. And he didn't mix it just well enough to seamlessly integrate. But at the same time, that separation is kind of cool to hear on headphones and speakers, and that's one of the reasons why I listen to it. But you get the drums, that sounds like a live recording. Or it's one of the very best fake live recordings that I've ever heard, which is possible, but I think it's a live recording. And then there are just some other electronic beats and notes and like tones and things like that come in throughout the rest of the song that have this little bit of separation to them. And for me, that's really fun to hear. Now, Dream Within a Dream. It's only here for the very last 20 seconds. Go and listen to it. You'll thank me later. Next track is Waiting for a Train. And this track I really enjoy because it's kind of got this really level mixture of romantic kind of sound. It's just a very romantic song, and it maintains that romanticism all the way through, but it's also epic at the same time. You don't really see that too often. You're kind of you usually either have like a binary choice. You either want romantic or you want epic. And this really is able to kind of connect the two in a very seamless manner. Now, a quick side note, I think this is the only track with any vocals in it whatsoever. And it's not even heavy vocals. Like, there's not really a whole lot of singing. It's just a couple sentences, really. Not said, it's sung, but it's in this weird style. Go listen to it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But what I really took away from this song, and what I really like this song for, is with that romanticism, with the epicness, you kind of get to follow the peaks and the valleys of this song. And it kind of takes you on this story of music. And you kind of, you get to follow along with it. And it's one of the only songs on this album that actually triggers an emotional response for me. I'm not sure why. I don't know exactly which scene in the movie this particular track is, but this is one of those songs that just gets me right in the feels. And Han's ability to bring that out of me is, it's impressive. That's really it. Now, Time. Time is one of the best tracks on this album. In fact, I believe it is the best track. And this song really does a good way of wrapping up the entirety of the intention and the purpose of not only the album, but the movie itself. And if there is one song to not only show off for, the impressiveness and the scale and the vastness of the song, but if there was one song to give a tone or a feeling of a movie or of this album, it'd be Time. So my conclusion, while this is not the most high fidelity album out there, it is one of the most enjoyable albums for me to listen to. And part of that's because of the really enjoyable movie. Part of that is because of how the score is composed. There's a lot to like about this album. In fact, I would go as far as to call it stellar, maybe even interstellar. It saddens me that not enough of you probably understood that joke to be disappointed in me. I'm sure a few of you did, but it's a movie that whatever. Okay, so last week I did speakers or headphones. This week I'm going to do the same. While it is amazing on headphones, where its true ability lies, where the true impressiveness and grand scale lies, you guessed it, speakers. All right, guys. Thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. My ear is like, it's a good thing I'm doing the album that I already know super well today, because my ear is like, my nose on this side. It's like this side of my mouth, this side of my throat, this side of my ear is just, and how do I?